Small intestine 9 is located on the posterior aspect of the shoulder, about 1 cm superior to the posterior axillary crease. How do you find this 1 cm? Well, it's important to place this point inferior to the inferior border of the deltoid. To bring this into relief, the person can push their arm backwards. You're feeling for a nice soft area below the muscle. It's important to remember that when you finally locate this point, you need to be completely parallel to the part of the body you're working on. Small intestine 9.
D4 is on the posterior midline, below the spinous process of L2.
Stomach 7 is located directly superior to stomach 6. Palpate upwards until you come to the zygomatic arch, and then come back down until you fall into a dip that is just anterior to the condyloid process of the mandible. Small intestine 17 is located on the side of the neck, in between the sternocleidomastoid and the angle of the mandible. Palpate along the posterior and inferior borders of that mandible to make sure that you find the point where it changes direction. Don't just rely on where the flesh is changing direction. You need to be sure that you've actually found the angle. Mark your point in between the sternocleidomastoid and the angle of the mandible. It's in a nice depression. It's not on bone, it's not on muscle. It's in a depression in between the two. When a person opens their jaw, a groove forms anterior to the tragus. Palpate into that groove and locate small intestine 19 in that groove anterior to the midpoint of the tragus. When a person opens their jaw, a groove opens up anterior to the tragus. Gallbladder 2 is located in this groove anterior to the infratragic notch. Gallbladder 4 is located 3/4 of the distance between gallbladder 7 and stomach 8. Gallbladder 10 is located about 1/3 of the distance of a curved line joining gallbladder 9 to gallbladder 12. Gallbladder 11 is located a little over 2/3 of the distance from gallbladder 9 to gallbladder 12. If you palpate, you'll find a nice dip. Sanjiao 17 is located in a dip behind the earlobe. It's between the ramus of the mandible and the mastoid process. Be careful that you don't put this point on bone. It's in between the bones in a dip. Sanjiao 19 is located 2/3 of the distance between Sanjiao 17 and Sanjiao 20, level with the rim of the ear when it's pressed against the side of the head. When a person opens their jaw, a groove forms anterior to the tragus. Palpate in this groove and locate Sanjiao 21 in this groove anterior to the supratragic notch. Bladder 8 is located 5.5 sun into the anterior hairline, 1.5 sun lateral to the midline. The easiest way to find bladder 8 is to find bladder 7 and then move posteriorly by 1.5 sun.
Large intestine 1 is at the radial nail point of the index finger. I'm going to be looking at the proximal and radial borders, looking and feeling for the flare of the bone, looking at where the nail bed is and putting my point in. So moving from large intestine 2 to large intestine 3, over the head of the second metacarpal joint into a significant depression. Again, the hand should be loosely flexed, so in a loose fist, and you should fall into that point. Large intestine 4, you're going to find the length of the second metacarpal bone. So running your finger down, finding the base, making sure that you're not actually on the carpal bones themselves, finding the midpoint of that shaft of bone, coming between the first and second metacarpals, nearer to the second than the first in the muscle.
Large intestine 10 is located 10 sun proximal to large intestine 5 on a line heading towards large intestine 11. Palpate along that line and fall into a nice groove in the muscle at 10 sun. Small intestine 3 is on the ulnar aspect of the hand. It's in a depression which is proximal to the head of the fifth metacarpal. It's in between the metacarpal bone and the muscle, and it typically lays on a level with the distal palmar crease. Small intestine 4 is on the ulnar aspect of the hand in this nice depression between the base of the fifth metacarpal and the triquetral bone, which is this palpable bone on the ulnar aspect of the wrist. Sanjiao points on the forearm are best located with the arm laying flat on the bed and the elbow turned outwards. To find Sanjiao 5, come 2 sun proximal to Sanjiao 4, in between the radius and the ulna. You should be on the radial side of the tendon of extensor digitorum communis. If the person wiggles their fingers, this tendon will come into relief. Bladder 65 is located on the lateral aspect of the foot in a dip which is proximal and inferior to the head of the fifth metatarsal. It's the knuckle of the little toe. Move proximally and inferiorly and fall into a nice dip. Once again, be careful not to mark this point too much onto the sole of the foot. It's on the side of the foot. Stomach 36 is located approximately 13 sun superior to the prominence of the lateral malleolus on the anterior border of tibialis anterior. The easiest way to find it is to palpate down the tibial tuberosity. Find the base of the tibial tuberosity and move slightly laterally until you fall into a nice dip on the anterior border of tibialis anterior. This point is also 3 sun inferior to the inferior border of the patella.